It's day 2 of Donald Trump's hush money trial, marking the first time a U.S. president has ever faced criminal charges. Veteran tabloid publisher David Pecker returned to the witness stand and detailed his efforts to help Trump stifle unflattering stories during the 2016 campaign. But earlier today, there was a heated exchange over whether the former president should be fined for social media posts prosecutors say violate the gag order. And that's where we start tonight.
Donald Trump heading back into the courtroom. Surprisingly, he kept his morning remarks focused on domestic issues like university protests.
And they want to protest peacefully. We have more police presence here than anyone's ever seen. For blocks, you can't get near this courthouse. And yet you have nobody up at a college where you have very radical people wanting to rip the colleges down.
And then there were some jabs at President Joe Biden.
But it all starts with Joe Biden. The signals he puts out are so bad. And I can tell you, he's no friend of Israel, that's for sure. And he's no friend of the Arab world either.
It was certainly a different tone from days prior.
The whole world is watching this hoax. The judge has a conflict, the worst I've ever seen.
It's fitting that his subdued comments today, lacking attacks toward the judge and the trial, came just before a hearing took place on the former president's alleged gag order violations. Certain posts on his Truth Social platform where he talks about witnesses, jurors, or prosecutors. It prompted a heated exchange between Judge Juan Merchan and Trump's lawyer Todd Blanche. Judge Merchan raised his voice and said, "I'm asking the questions. I'm going to be the one who decides whether your client is in contempt." Blanche argued the series of social media posts by Trump were responses to political attacks and that they should be permitted. Merchan then told Blanche, "You're losing all credibility." By the afternoon break, cue the Trump we all know.
I think it's a disgrace. It's totally unconstitutional. I don't believe it's never, not to this extent, ever happened before. I'm not allowed to defend myself, and yet other people are allowed to say whatever they want about me. Very, very unfair.
Prosecutors asked the judge to fine Trump the maximum $1,000 for each of the 10 offending posts and to remind him that future violations could be punished with incarceration up to 30 days.
So I put an article in, and then somebody's name is mentioned somewhere deep in the article, and I end up in violation of a gag order.
Judge Merchan said he is reserving a decision on the gag order violations. When that hearing wrapped, veteran tabloid publisher David Pecker returned to the witness stand. No cameras are allowed inside, but sketch artists captured the scene. Pecker, the National Enquirer's former publisher and a longtime friend of Trump's, testified for over 2 hours. He openly detailed a 2015 catch and kill agreement with Trump and Michael Cohen to try to kill negative stories about Trump and instead run negative stories on his rivals, aka Hillary Clinton.
For Donald Trump, this is a profound betrayal. You know, for David Pecker, one of his longtime friends, to be sharing all of these secrets, it's an incredible betrayal. In the tabloid world, knowing where the bodies are buried can be a compliment. It can be a strategy. And Michael Cohen, David Pecker, they knew where some of these proverbial bodies were buried. They knew about these secrets they were trying to keep.
The former tabloid publisher said he attended a meeting with Trump and Michael Cohen in August 2015, where he told Trump he would be his eyes and ears. Pecker said he offered to tell Cohen about women selling stories so that Cohen could have those stories killed. Pecker said the agreement with Trump was never put in writing. He said the first time he paid to kill a negative article about Trump was when he bought a story for $30,000 from a doorman who said Trump had fathered a child.
I immediately called Michael Cohen and told him exactly what I was told. Why is this important?
Trump is not really on trial for the doorman story or the Karen McDougal story, but the state, the people are using this to set up the existence of a relationship, and that relationship had a very specific purpose.
At the heart of this case are allegations that Trump orchestrated a scheme to bury unflattering stories about his personal life that might torpedo his campaign. Prosecutors say Trump obscured the true nature of those payments in internal business documents. He has pleaded not guilty to 34 felony counts of falsifying business records. Court is not in session on Wednesday, and the trial will resume Thursday morning.
Let's bring in professor and political analyst Henry Giroux. Henry, we've been talking about David Pecker today, longtime friend of Trump and the former National Enquirer publisher. What do you make of his testimony so far? How beneficial will his account be to the prosecution?
Well, I think the testimony is very damaging. What he has said so far is very interesting. I mean, he's had a long-term relationship with Trump since 2015. And during that time, of course, he made a promise to do three things for Trump, right? One was to trash whoever was a critic of Trump through popular stories that appeared in the National Enquirer. He also claimed that he would catch and kill stories that were damaging to Trump's reputation. And he would do everything he could to publish stories that would promote Trump, however exaggerated. So I think it's going to be very difficult for the defense to really sort of dismiss him as either lying or as not being a significant witness in testifying to, in some way, not only Trump's past, which is really quite sordid, to say the least, but his attempt to consistently cover up a whole series of serial crimes that he might have committed.
I want to ask you about Trump's gag order because that took up most of the morning today. If it's just $1,000 a post or per violation of the gag order, will that stop Trump from speaking out about witnesses or the prosecution? Because I'm sure that won't seem like a lot of money for the former president.
Trump is a very compulsive narcissist. He has no sense of self-restraint. He simply cannot control himself. And he needs to control everything that he comes in contact with that he finds that he seems to suggest is, he thinks is negative publicity against him. I don't believe this will stop Trump at all. I think the real question here is how far does he have to go before the judge literally needs to hold him into contempt and maybe put him in jail for 30 days. I think the judge and the prosecution don't really want that to happen. But this may be pushed to such limits that Judge Merchan may not have any other alternative. I don't believe that Trump will stop, and I don't think anybody does. There's no indication in his past that he can contain himself or that his lawyers can contain him. I mean, he's a lawyer's nightmare in terms of taking advice and sticking to it.
Henry, you and I have chatted about Trump since 2015 when he was running for the Republican nomination. Is this the first time that some system is holding him to account, that there's actually pushback on the former president?
I think it's a great question, and I think it is the first time. I mean, it's clearly with the few cases that have come up in the last year, he's been held accountable by virtue of being fined and so forth and so on. And although these were civil cases, not criminal cases, these Jean Carroll. But this is a serious issue. This is the first time that Trump is being held in a case in which there is actually 34 felonies being waged. This is a criminal case. First time in history an American president has been held in a criminal case of this sort. So yes, this is a landmark. This is a landmark event. I'm not sure where it'll go, but I think it at least reveals Trump or puts Trump in a position where he doesn't control the scenario. He's going to be asked questions he can't control. He's going to be confronted by a jury he can't control. And I think for Trump, this has to be the worst day of his life. So we'll see what happens.
Sounds like he's living his worst nightmare, Henry. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on Trending Now.
Oh, it's always a pleasure. Thanks for having me on.